All right, welcome, 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 my bows and bow ties. This is the Black Opinionated Woman, also known as a bow. So yeah, I wanted to do a quick live. My kids had delayed opening because of some icy conditions, so they have to be put on a bus in about 35, 45 minutes. So I'm hoping I can run through this. Now, I should probably take my time, but we're going to talk about third wave feminism and whether I really, really believe in it, right? Look, I don't expect this to be popular. I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off. So just be prepared to be possibly triggered. I get it. Look, I'm triggered by things I see all the time in the media. So when I do see things, I'm triggered by the fact that, Russia's invading Ukraine. I'm triggered by a lot of things. So guess what? You're just going to probably be triggered today. So before I get into this, what really triggered this? I think I've just been struggling with this whole Lia Thomas thing, right? You've got this. I got to get the definitions right. I guess I have to call her trans and it's a her, but I'm going to be honest. I don't believe that Lia Thomas is a her, but because Lia Thomas identifies as a she, I got to call her her. I got to call him her, whatever. So here I am. My personal beliefs are this is still a man. This is a man who now decides I am now a woman. Look, as much as people are going to get mad at me, I still feel the same way about Caitlyn Jenner, previously known as Bruce. Okay. So, but because Caitlyn goes by she, and look, I'll call you she, doesn't mean I believe you're a she, and I have the right to my own beliefs. Now, we're going to go into this because what happens is when you say things like that, people are going to say, oh, you're a transphobe. I'm like, no, I am not. Because I can work with someone who's trans or gay or anybody. I can sit next to them because some people are scared of people. I can cut up, I can hee haw, all that good stuff, but my beliefs are my beliefs. Just like when I go to work every day, I work with people who may or may not like black people or women in the workplace. I don't know. I'm just hold on. Let me put my little ticker up. I'm not saying this is my coworkers, okay? But the point I'm making is I can work with people. I don't have to necessarily believe in your beliefs. So getting back to this trans situation, okay? So I was just so irritated at the whole Leah Thomas situation, breaking all these. It's on so many levels. I just think it's wrong. And I know there's going to be the crazy left to the left side is going to go nutso about it and be like, you hate. I'm like, no, I don't. I should be able to disagree without it meaning that I am fearful, like I'm a phobe of trans people. No. Okay. Now, look, let's get right on into this. Like, so what is, sorry, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Third wave feminism. So, what exactly is it? Now, I would love for someone who is a sociologist maybe to reach out to me because I'm not going to be able to really bring people on right now. I'm short for time. I would love to have a conversation with someone who's a sociologist and who's had these studies, the multicultural studies, right? Because they're going to lend a much deeper, I don't know if I should call it understanding or they're going to give a different perspective. Okay, so I would love to have somebody from academia have this discussion with me, as long as it's respectful. But basically, my understanding is you've got, was it like three waves of feminism? The first one was based off of suffrage, right? And I was totally for that. Like I call it old school feminism. Suffrage, first wave feminism was basically the women's right to vote, the right to own property and whatever, right? It was mostly about rights. The second wave of feminism was really primarily, from my understanding, about the reproductive rights of women, right? Now you got this third wave, which to me is based off of, like, I had an old graphic from years ago when I used to blog. It's really kind of based on this whole postmodernism. And when I always think of postmodernism, I think of, hold on, I'm gonna bring this up. You see this? Sorry, I you see that? Let me go back to myself for a second. Maybe I'm jumping ahead. You got the third wave, which is, in my opinion, based on postmodernism, which is basically a lot of identity, a lot of things rooted in your identity. And I believe the fourth one is based off of race and intersectionality. And I do believe those things play a part. But to me, what feminism has turned out to be and co-opted to be is just turned into something else that I'm not signed up for all of the shenanigans. And so a lot of people will say, like, oh, you're trying to support the patriarchy, whatever. I don't care, fine. So, but that's what this was sparking it, because this Lia Thomas, this man, which people don't want to admit, this is a man who identifies as a woman, but it's still a man. This is a man who is sitting here in this women's sports. Now, these women who worked so hard to compete, now it's like men. Let me stay on topic for a second. So anyway, getting back to third wave feminism, and I know I'm like a little fired up, but this whole identity thing now, and I think the reason why it is driving me a little nuts is because now I can't just say I'm a woman. I have to put qualifiers around that. No, I'm not going to say I'm cisgendered woman. I'm just going to say I'm a woman. Okay. I'm like, I do believe there is a space for trans persons, right? Because and it's confusing. They're going from women to man, back to woman. You got men going to women, or women going to men, and they're confused in their own community. So how do they expect us to actually, and when I say us, I mean people who are not trans, to sit there and really understand and identify with everything? Because I feel like the goalpost keeps moving with the definitions, with the LGBTQ community, all the letters, it keeps changing. I'm like, the goalpost never stops. And it's like, I want to be supportive. When I say supportive, it doesn't mean I believe in your right. I mean, believe in your beliefs, but I do believe you have rights. In my mind, that made sense. I don't have to support and agree with everything, but I do believe you should have human basic rights. You should not live in fear. There shouldn't be any hate crimes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I totally believe in that. I think you should be able to care for whoever you want. So if you decide that you want to care for, and I think all of that stuff is starting to phase in. You should be able to have a same-sex partner. If that's what you're into, it doesn't mean I believe in that. But I do believe that if that's how you identify as your family, you should be able to put them on your insurance and all that good stuff. But I want to make this clear. Just because I can support you as a person in your personal rights, it's just kind of like somebody who may have a religious difference that I don't necessarily believe in your religion, but you have the right to worship who you worship. So I get frustrated with all of this redefinition and rebranding of womanhood and everything else. I'm like, no, all the way no. Now, let's move on to this thing. So third wave feminism, for what I understand, it really just addressed this whole notion of identity, like what is a woman? I had notes and I'm like off, right? But this is the thing I wanted to get into, because we're still talking about what it is. I feel like, well, we'll go to postmodernism. What time do I have? Okay. So we're going to talk about this postmodernism thing for a second. I wish I could have found my old graphic when I used to blog. Let me go back to this. So we're going to talk about postmodernism. And if you look on this, I guess I can take this off for a second. I just found this graphic online. This isn't the one I wanted, but it'll suffice. On the very, can you see this? Let me go to that page for a second and take off this. Okay. Can you see this better? Basically, in a nutshell, it discusses you, from modern age. Originally, you knew who you were, and with postmodernism, now it basically talks about like how you can create who you want to be. If you look at here, it's more about individuality. It's more about redefining who you are, redefining families, all that kind of stuff. Like, for example, education for what? And if you look at what's happening now, even in our society, right, we're not necessarily concerned about becoming educated and learning more things. We're more concerned with the gig economy, right? And part of it's because we've been forced into that due to capitalism, all these other things. Let me, maybe if I just put this back up off to the side, make myself smaller. I'm sorry, I should do better. Okay, so I get it. But I do think postmodernism has done a lot for this whole feminism thing. And I'm like, we need to calm down. I think there, like, I don't even know if there's a fifth wave feminism, but look, I've got beef with all these feminism things. This is why I used to always tell people I'm a faux feminist. I'm not like a real feminist. I'm like a fake feminist. Some of this stuff that people are getting off on and all the hating of the men thing, I'm like, I don't get down with that. Now, so anyway, I do believe that much of this is rooted in postmodernism. I really do believe that. So now everybody's redefining everything. Like I identify as a cat. I don't know. So I just kind of feel like, but this is the thing. I'm going to move on. This is the part that drives me crazy about this type of thing, especially like a Leah Thomas. You've got, and I had a conversation with a coworker of mine not too long ago, and we were talking about what part of womanhood do you really identify with? I am so sick and tired of people who decide that they want to be trans women, and I hope I said that correctly. When you go from man to woman, or are you a trans woman when you go from woman to man? Whichever one it is. So, like, if you're a woman, if you're now a new woman, if you were a man that went to a woman, I believe that's called trans woman, right? This is what bothers me. There's this whole big discussion on like female versus woman, right? I'm like, well, if you identify as a woman, whatever that means, why do you pick the most performative part of womanhood to when you're transitioning? And your whole goal is to pass, right? I'm like, so I'm not like, I don't really understand. I don't understand. And I would love to have this conversation. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree, but if you tell me you identify as a woman, well, what parts of womanhood, the most performative parts? When I see people who identify as I believe it's called trans woman, I see more preening and cat preening. You know what I mean? Like more and all of this and the extreme of everything, the boobs, and they got to make sure you see it, the makeup and the nails. And I'm like, is that what womanhood is? I mean, because if that's the case, then maybe I'm failing at it because I don't prop up my girls on a daily basis. Well, they're not that big anyway. But like, and it's not that I don't get dressed up and do these other things, but like, even in this conversation that I'm having with my computer, I don't think I did a whole bunch of this every 2 seconds. But what kills me about this is when people decide that they want to go from man to woman, they pick the most performative parts of what society calls is womanhood. And I'm like, you can miss me on that. So I'm like, so that's what you identify as? Because I'm like, do you identify with everything else that comes with womanhood? Because I'm like, see, you get to choose what you identify with. Do you get to identify with if you're black, the black woman who typically, I know there's like this huge thing with uterine fibroids. Fortunately, I didn't have that issue. Do you get to identify with that portion of growing up? Do you get to identify with that portion of what it's like when they have difficulty trying to produce children? What about on the white side? Whatever, I don't know what the white problems are, but like my whole point is like it kills me when people decide I'm going to choose to be women because this is how I feel. This is how I identify on the inside. They get to pick and choose the parts of womanhood they want to identify with. They don't get to pick and choose what it's like when you are growing and your body is changing into a woman. And how, if you are playing sports, how oftentimes women, young ladies, there is an adjustment period when they're playing sports. Girls get in the way. You know, I don't know. They may have menstrual cramps. Unfortunately, I didn't have to deal with that, right? So they get to not identify with those things because they can't. So when I say, what does that mean when you identify with being a woman? You get to pick and choose the part of societal woman because you remember they decide that like, oh no, this is just cultural norms. So I'm like, what part of womanhood are you identifying with? Are you identifying with the pain of those women who want to have children and can't because of, I don't know, endometriosis or something? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. No, they get to decide that I identify as a woman and they pick the most performative parts of womanhood. So I know people are not going to want to hear this and they're not going to like it. It doesn't mean I'm a transphobe, but we're going to have like an honest discussion and we need to call a thing a thing. I'm like, come on. Like sometimes we just have to call a thing a thing. And then what happens is because everybody is nutso out here, if you express your opinion, it's you are anti this and anti that. We want to cancel everybody. Now, like I said, I don't have a problem with anyone who decides per se that you identify as a woman. I may side eye and question as well, what part of woman are you really identifying with? So if you decide that as a 20 something year old man you want to be a woman, you don't get to go through. If you're an athlete, you're a Leah Thomas now. You don't get to go through all the pain and regimen of a woman, one who was cisgender, because we got to go by all these terms. Someone who was born biologically as a woman, all the changes she had to go through as she trained. Now I'm just using the athlete thing because that was on my mind. Leah Thomas got to skip all that. What is it like to fine tune your body? What is that like to fine tune your body as you are growing and you had to make these adjustments? Now, I'm not saying that men don't make adjustments, but I'm speaking to women because that's how I identify. So now men can say, I now identify women. Miss, as a woman, you can miss me with that. Men, because you pick the parts that, what do you identify with? So you think because you may add some girls or not add some girls, maybe do an inverse operation thing and grow some hair and do some physical stuff. So you identify most with the physicality. And the thing that kills me is I'm like, if you identify as a woman, and if all those things like doing this with your hair and the makeup and all that stuff, and that's like the most performative parts of womanhood, why do you actually choose those pieces if you're a trans woman to conform to? Because remember, identity and sex. I mean, I'm sorry, gender and sex are two different things. How you identify is how you identify. Why do you choose to do these things? Why can't you just be your normal male self and you're like, I identify as a woman, whether or not you have girls or not? Because there's plenty of women who don't have these big ones, but yet and still you get to pick and choose. I guess what is it, body dysmorphia, whatever. To me, I would say there is a bigger issue when you wake up and you just hate the body that you're in. That's a bigger issue. When you're like, I can no longer live as myself, whether it's by your gender, whether it's by or sex, whether it's by your race. There's people who don't want to be. This isn't the same as getting a haircut, changing your hair color. Those are temporary things, right? I'm talking about changing your body, people who bleach their skin. So I just kind of feel like, what part do you really identify with in womanhood? Um, so when people say trans women pose no threat, who are we gaslighting? They most certainly do pose a threat. Now, when I say threat, do I mean, let me put that back up for a second. Do I mean, let me bring myself here. Do I mean a physical threat? Well, I don't know, unless you're a physical person. But you're saying they don't pose a threat? Yeah, they most certainly do pose a threat. All we have to do is look right back at to what's happening with Lia Thomas. That is a threat. She is taking up residency in a spot on a team that was designed for women. There's a reason why they came out with Title 10 sports. So you mean to tell me you're going to be that selfish? Not only did you take up residency on the men's side, and now you want to take up residency on the woman's side. And then you're breaking records. So I'm like, how can you possibly sleep at night thinking like, yeah, I am sitting here beasting out on these other women. You're like 500 feet taller, bigger, broader. I wish you could see my full body today. And just to give you some perspective, I am 5'6". I'm a size 8. I'm like a thick 8. I might be pushing a 10 now. I need to get back down to a 6. I, as a 5'6" woman, am not going to be, even when I'm in my best shape, I'm not going to be able to compare in general with another 5'6" man. Now, for those of you who want to sit there and pull out an edge case that Lia Thomas lost to another woman, let me just say for a record, or a woman who transitioned to a man, I can't remember her name. I think she was from Yale or Princeton or something. Let me just say this. Number one, there's rumors behind how this Lia Thomas lost. There's rumors of the fact that like she lost on purpose. Let's call a thing a thing. Number two, men can transition into women and come into women's sports and beast out on them. Didn't they have just like an MMA person just come out and beat the crap out of somebody? But most women, I don't care how hard you train, I'm not talking about the edge case, cannot go and play men's sports. I was talking with a buddy of mine just yesterday. We were talking about Usain Bolt can come back out of retirement, eating donuts and stuff, and was still wow out on women track and field athletes. They can't compare. Look, men have a hard time comparing to, but take any man right now, any man will go into a woman's sport. No woman can compare to a man in their respective sports. They're physiologically built differently. They got different bone densities, and things are up here and moving or not moving and floating and carrying on. Center of gravity changes. Well, look, and if anybody out there is in their feelings and they're mad, you are allowed to be mad, just like I am allowed to speak my truth. People went off on J.K. Rowling and called her a turf. I forgot what it stands, trans exclusionary something. I don't even remember what it stands for. I'm like, wait a second. You're not going to gaslight me. Now, do I think some of the men who turn into women or change into women or go through the whole situation, some of them look fabulous. I'm like, the fabulosity of it is amazing. But it doesn't mean I think you're a woman. It means to me like you made some physical changes. If you have to take all of these hormones just to, I'm like, first of no, we gotta call a thing a thing. We need to stop. Everyone's scared to say, I'm just like, this is just too much. But anyway, like I said, are they a threat? They absolutely are a threat. They're taking up residency. Look, didn't they just say that Lia Thomas was walking around balls and peen, hanging out everywhere, just a swinging and just a jiggling and carrying on in the locker room? I'm like, put it away. Because when it, like, as a person who used to play sports, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I don't want to see that. I'm trying to wash my stuff and open things and lift things and get it all clean. The last thing I want is to see, balls and peen. Like, can we not have a safe space? There's a reason why women want safe spaces. It doesn't mean that they hate men. They're not anti-man. No. We want to talk about things like, hey, did you get a Brazilian? Or hey, are you going to get laser or whatever it is? I think it is outrageous. And so what happens is people get angry when you actually stand in your truth. I think it's foul what's going on. And you've got women who I know are scared to speak up, and then you got the other ones who are just kind of like, I just believe that everybody can identify as what they want to be. Well, because I'm like, you know what? I've got white heritage in me. You know what? I want to identify as a white woman today. As of today, I'm a white woman. I want some of this privilege. I don't care that I don't look white. I identify as a white woman today. No, because see, I can identify however I want. Maybe I should go change what is on the census. I want some privilege. But the point I'm making is when you have people, trans women, taking up residency in women's spaces, that is shenanigans. Who is trying to call me? That is shenanigans. Shenanigans. Because what happens now is not only do they have spaces for men, but now they're taking up spaces for women because they personally feel, doesn't matter what biology says, they personally feel that they are. I'm like, come on. I'm like, when you wake up and you look in the mirror and you absolutely hate the body that you were born in, that is something else indicative going on with you. And now we've got a whole situation where people are telling people, like, if you don't agree with me, you are transformed. No, I'm not, and I am not copying to it. No, no, all the way no. I'm like, women need to have their spaces. Like, I'm gonna tell you something else, which is gonna make some people mad. I don't like the fact that they've got Girl Scouts going into Boy Scouts. Why can't boys have a space as they are growing into manhood? So if it's a matter of doing those activities, well, then you fight to have those activities brought to Girl Scouts. But I do believe boys should have a place where they can go and do boy-like things, whatever that is. If they want to do cartwheels in the woods and carve out wood shanks to make, I don't know. I'm not a Boy Scout. My daughter does Girl Scouts. And they do a lot of really cool things too, engineering related things. I taught one of the engineering blocks, by the way, and that was amazing. They learned a lot. I digress. And they even built something. The point I'm making is we need to stop. I don't think Girl Scouts should be going into Boy Scout spaces. It's all these people who want to impose themselves. They feel like they have to be part of every group, and we need to stop. But this Lia Thomas is effing foul. This man who identifies as a woman, I guess is a trans woman. See, like I said, people don't have to like the fact that I'm saying it. Lia Thomas was born a man who has competed in a man sport and then decided I no longer want to be in this space. I want to take up residency in a woman's space. And so when you tell me, do they pose a threat? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They are taking up spaces for women who were born women. There's a reason why they created sports for women who were born women. So, like I said, me disagreeing with the position of trans women doesn't mean I am anti-trans woman, but I am anti taking up spaces designed for women who were born women. That's not right. That's not right. I don't know what this means in terms of sports. Either you compete in the sport that you were assigned at birth as far as what you were born, what your DNA says, or maybe we need to create a new category. But this isn't right. We're not getting it right. We're not getting it right. So, look, I think I said what I said. I know people are going to be mad, and I know I'm going to get some hate comments, and you're allowed to have your hate comments. But I would love to hear someone who is a sociologist or who studies women's histories. And I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to quote Kimberla Crenshaw, and I do believe a lot of that is related. Don't get me wrong in terms of the whole feminist stuff, and I get it in terms of intersectionality, because I think that's part of the fourth wave, right? Understanding how all these things play a part in terms of how we are positioned in society and what groups we belong to. I do believe that. But as far as all this feminist stuff, I think that's the reason why there's so many women who are backing away from feminism, because it's like, this isn't what it originally started out to be. And that's not to say that things can't evolve, but this is becoming too much. We've got waves of feminism. We got first wave feminism, second wave feminism, third wave feminism, fourth wave feminism, white feminism, black feminism, womanism. Miss me. All the way miss me. And so, anyway, that's how I feel about the whole Lia Thomas thing. That's what sparked me to go on this whole mini little rant. I don't really care if people like what I'm saying. I offer up myself for reasonable conversation. We don't have to agree. We can be respectful. But this isn't right. This isn't right. And to be honest, when I'm doing some research stuff, hold on a second, I'm almost done. When I'm doing research or whatever, I whenever I read, I shouldn't say research. It's more like, and I don't even want to say confirmation bias. When I'm just trying to get information, it's just not really clear to me. It's not clear to me. I think the biggest question I have, and then I'm going to sign off, is if you wake up and you identify as a woman, what part of womanhood are you identifying with? Because it can't be any of the physiology stuff. And especially if you're an athlete, you didn't go through the training and what it was like to push your body to different limits as you were growing, and things are changing and things are moving and hopping and popping and locking and jumping and not jumping. And the monthly routine pains, if you get those or whatever it is, the things that you have to deal with. Think about what happened to Danielle Collins. She's a tennis player. It affected her tennis when she was having endometriosis. The amount of pain as she was training, it limited her training. She got that taken care of, and then she almost won the Australian Open this year in 2022. Think about there was a Simona Halep. She's a tennis person. I think years ago she had a breast reduction. She had some huge knockers, if I remember correctly. I mean, she was knockerlicious. She chopped them jokers off and got them down to like a normal size, whatever you consider to be normal. Next thing you know, she's winning matches and winning slams. So I want to know, what part of that did these trans athletes, especially like a Lia Thomas, identify within womanhood? You identified what it was like to do that? Or you just grew out some hair and I don't know what you do in your outside life. All right. I'm done. If somebody has a comment, you can go ahead and leave one. I gotta go get my kids on the bus. So that's just where I'm at with it. How do I get out of here? How do I sign off? I'm having a problem today. All right. Black opinionated woman. Out.